it's just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing John Tointigh and his lovely wife, Keli Tointigh, out of Chickasha, Oklahoma. Keli began her career in dentistry following a decade of retail service where she was a general manager for a department store, Stein Mart. She graduated from the University of Science and Arts of Oklahoma with a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology. She then obtained a master's degree in human relations from the University of Oklahoma. She utilized her experience and education in a role as the office manager for 29th Street Dental Care under Dr. John C. Phillips. She joined the dental field in 2009 at Dr. Phillips' office when the office was a two-doctor practice with 3 hygienists and 12 total employees and a monthly collection average of $250,000. Today, the same one-office practice in rural Oklahoma town has 16,000 people, which is situated 45 miles from any metropolitan area, has grown into a super GP practice with intraoral cameras, CBCT scan, 3D printer, Trio scanner, has 3 doctors with 5 hygienists and 33 employees collecting $6 million a year. Keli plays a key role in collection, scheduling to hit provider production goals, treatment presentation, AR, human resources, and overall practice size. She's been participating in training the office employees. She's married to that handsome man sitting right next to her. Keli is married to John Tointigh, 21 years, and they have 5 children. So obviously, that's why you got a degree in psychology and HR, just to prepare you to marry John and have 5 kids. Did it work? Did it help at all?
No.
And the kids' names are interesting. Somebody likes baseball. Your names are Gehrig, Boston, Maris, Nolan, and Caroline. Okay, I see 3 baseball players there somewhere. Am I right or wrong?
No, absolutely right. Gehrig, obviously after Lou Gehrig. But I'm a Red Sox fan. So to name my kid after a Yankee, I got a lot of heat for that. So when we had the second, I was like, well, I'll just cover the bases and just get Boston. They'll never be able to spell Yastrzemski Tointigh. And then Maris was a bit of a surprise. And,
and then what? Maris?
He was a surprise. So when we we landed on Maris, we thought that's a great name too. And then as if, being married 20 years and having 3 kids of our own wasn't complicated enough, we decided to adopt a couple of kids and just to kind of integrate them into our family a little bit better. We pushed their first names to their middle names, and we have a Nolan after Nolan Ryan, one of the best to do it. And again, as a Red Sox fan, at 8th inning of every Red Sox game in Fenway Park, they play Sweet Caroline. So we have a Sweet Caroline.
And what made you, where'd you adopt the 2 kids from? Is that a local thing in Oklahoma or?
Yeah, it was in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma?
Yeah, they were from Oklahoma, brother and sister, and kind of got a random phone call. We weren't looking to adopt or foster or anything. It was just out of the blue. And, we looked at each other and said, if we're able and capable, we feel like we're being selfish if we're able to help and we don't. And so 2.5 years later, here we are.
Now where does that from the heart come from? Was that, where did that come from in your childhood? Was that a church thing, a religious thing, your own mom? Where does that gift come from?
Obviously she and I both share it. So we're going to have 2 different stories, but yeah, I was raised in the Episcopal Church. And my grandfather, although he wasn't a religious man himself, was always preaching to me to do the right thing, not be rude, tell the truth. And again, the truth was we were young and capable enough to take care of a couple of more kids. And so we did.
That is amazing. So let me introduce you.
Okay.
John is the founder of 406 Resources. With 15 years of experience in advertising and marketing medical practices, John has made a career working with offices to target the right demographic, increasing quality phone calls, which can be converted into new business. He wants to be the change in the consulting world from the cookie cutter one-size-fits-all approach, knowing every office and doctor are unique in many ways, yet everyone wants a smooth running practice. 406 will draft programs, methods and systems that will improve production, patient care, and ultimately profitability without forcing you to change your office culture. 406 Resources is a developing entity, and will focus on, it just goes on and on and on and on. I think the reason I want you to get on your show is you guys have been doing this a long time. What's changed? Everybody listening right now, they know what happened in their world. I mean, God, you know how rude it was for the governor to make me close my office down on St. Patrick's Day when I'm Irish? I just had to go get a bottle of Jameson and go home and cry. And then they opened it back up on St. Patrick, on Cinco de Mayo, and I had already started the tequila, so I wish they would have given me a heads up on that. I'm just joking, of course, on all that. But we know what happened to us in our world. How did it change your world, your customers, your dental offices? How did it rock your world?
It rocked our world in every single way. Obviously, I mean, you're talking about the COVID shutdown, and all we had were questions. No one had any answers, and so all you could do is just put everything on pause and figure out a way to utilize your time as best you could. And so I spent that time on Dental Town and talking to other people and just kind of using it as a way to, what else do I have to learn? If I'm just going to sit around the house, I might as well get better at something. And so just did my best to become a more well-rounded individual, both for 406 Resources and otherwise.
So your resources is 406resources.com.
It is.
But I know you of two names. I mean, you're Blackhorse Marketing and you're 406 Resources. So what is the difference between Blackhorse Marketing and 406 Resources?
Well, Blackhorse Marketing is the parent company that I started 15 years ago. I got my introduction into marketing and advertising back in 2004 when I was hired to be a marketing manager for a LASIK practice in Oklahoma City. And at that point, the LASIK market was just getting super hot. So the competition was fierce. It was fast paced. And so, my job became to figure out how to make this practice a little more visible, get them as many new patients as possible, of course. And once they became one of the more prominent practices in the city, I got people in touch and asked me, hey, you'd be interested in coming to work for us. And, rather than do that, I kind of thought, well, maybe I could not tie myself down and, take this and do it as an individual and help more than one office. So that's what I started doing and have, got it into this point where 406 with Keli and being introduced to Dr. Hebert several years ago. It's kind of like we passed a lot of ideas back and forth and just kind of thought, what are we doing? Why can't we take this information that we all three have collectively and turn it into something where, we can offer that information to offices, because you have someone like a consultant who can come in and give you the nuts and bolts, how to run your front desk or, give you some systems. But then they're like, okay, well, I got that in place. Well, now how do I market it? Or, gosh, I need to kind of run some ideas and things off of a doctor. So we feel like, if we can put all of those things in place, or as many as possible in place, to where you only have to worry about, basically one phone number rather than having to try and remember who all's run your social media campaign, who's doing your TV stuff, or who helped you with your front desk, and, who's helping with your back office stuff. We try to, again, make ourselves as, just kind of more of a one-stop shop. I know obviously we probably don't have all the answers, but if we can give you most of what you need, I mean, that's the goal.
And should people listen to you when you're talking, should they go to the website, thebblackhorsemarketing.com, or should they go to 406resources.com? Which one?
406 Resources is going to be the dental specific, the Blackhorse Marketing. Again, if there's somebody that should utilize our services outside of the dental market, that's what that's for. I opened that up beyond medical practice marketing and advertising whenever my kids started to get a little bit older, so I can, kind of keep myself a little bit more closer to home. But now that we've graduated one, and so we're kind of looking to kind of creep back out there. So the dental specific is going to be 406.
406. And by the way, your family picture on the website is, with those 5 kids, that is one hell of a warm and fuzzy picture. I just saw that was so cool. So, when you're talking about, most of the consultants are one size fits all. You come in there, you tell them everything that's wrong, but they already have their canned presentation. That is, would you say a lot of consultants do that?
From what I've been able to gather, I couldn't tell you if it's most or not. I couldn't put a number to it, but what I've been able to gather from a lot of it from Dental Town and talking to other dentists, the issues that they have are, we don't like being forced into a program where I'm not really having as much fun being a dentist because I have to follow this program that they're forcing me into, or I'm locked into this long contract. I know that's always a huge bugaboo for a lot of people. Rather than earn the business month to month, I sign this 12-month contract or 18-month contract, and we guarantee that you'll get to this point, but you have to rigidly and religiously follow this program. And again, obviously you want your practice to go this direction, but what does it really cost you in enjoying what you do for a living? And you're dreading to go into your office every single day because you're doing something that's not a culture that you want for yourself, for your employees.
And coming from an office where we've had consultants come in, you do shape it and form it to what you want. They can come in and tell you, say it just like this. And when they leave, you're not going to say it just like that. So, we want to definitely do something that is customized for everyone. But it is, a little bit of you in there as well. If that's not how you're going to say it, then that's not what we're going to ask you to say.
Yeah. So if you were to go to the gymnasium, the 3 of us went in to go see a personal trainer. He's like, hey, our goal is, to be physically fit. We're going to get 3 different answers from that guy because we're 3 completely different individuals. And dental offices a lot of times are it's the same boat. You're going to have 3 different personalities and 3 different types of leadership. And so that's why, we want to, like you said, kind of make it customizable.
Yeah, I hate exercising so bad, I won't even talk to a guy if his name is Jim. And, so I want to start this, and it's not because you have MHR on your name. That's a master's in human resources. Yes. And then you got a degree in psychology, right? Yeah. And it's like you just have to coach people all the time. It's the greatest thing in life is people, and it's the most challenging part of life. I wouldn't want to be born on some fancy island and be the only guy, the only human. I'd rather be born in a slum with 1,000 other kids than to be born on an island, paradise or whatever. So people are the greatest thing about life and the most challenging thing in life. And I'm not just talking about my mom and 5 sisters. I'm talking about in every dental office. When I meet every dentist known to man and I say, tell me the top 3 things that stress you out, it's never the right answer, which should have been root canals, implants, and posterior composites. It's always like, oh my God, I don't know if it's my own staff or my patients, but between my staff and my patients, I had a full head of hair. Most people thought I looked just like Marky Mark before I became a dentist. But what do you think? Why do their own patients, their own stress? Like, I'll give you another example, like on Dental Town, and you've seen this a gazillion times. You're always on there as, what do I say to my hygienist? She just came back and she said blah 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 blah. And I'm like, man. He's going to Dental Town before he talks to his own damn hygienist. She's in your building for 5 years. You pay her $40 an hour. I couldn't pick her out of a police lineup, and you're asking me? So what? So my question to you is just, why is HR so stressful for dentists?
I think, dentistry is very intricate. And I think that people who are really good dentists technically are built a certain way. And dealing with people sometimes is the opposite of that. I think that's why it's important, especially for a dentist, to have a strong person on the front end, a strong person that you can trust, that has your back, that can go to bat for you if in the break room they hear a hygienist voice something that's not necessarily with your culture. But I think it's really more important to establish the culture. You know, if you set the culture in an appropriate way and everyone who's on board with you is buying into that culture, I think that's the biggest thing. You would never have to go outside and ask someone on Dentaltown how to handle your hygienist if your hygienist knew at the end of the day, this is what our culture is. And our culture is to take care of our patients and take care of our people. And, you know, they're kind of in our bubble. And what we have to do to take care of our patients might go against what that hygienist wants. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is our culture. This is, you know, reminding everyone who we are. But I think most dentists struggle because they, you know, have someone at the front where they don't understand what that person does. They don't know if they can trust them. They saw them in the break room twice and they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off and their front office person's drinking coffee. You know, I think there's just a lot of disconnect between the back and the front. And I think that's where somebody like me is great. But I think systems are really important and establishing a culture is even more important.
So, you know, whenever a dentist, I figured this out over the years, but, you know, a dentist will start really going to town on badmouth trashing Delta Dental. And and I'm listening to the rant. About halfway through, I'm realized, are you sure you're talking about Delta Dental, or is that, you know? And then you go look at the claim, and it's never Delta Dental. It's Connecticut. It's some other dental. But whenever they talk about dental insurance, they just say Delta Dental. It's the first thing. And I noticed that, you know, you have a master's in HR, and when you start talking about HR, you said hygienist. Is Delta Dental to insurance just the low hanging fruit synonym to hygienist to HR, or is the hygienist usually really truly the biggest HR pain in the butt?
I mean, I think because they're a provider, I wouldn't say that, but I think doctors may, because you're dealing with someone who is handled oftentimes very separate from the rest of your staff. Their patients.
Because she's a provider?
That's right, because she's a provider. So in our office, we're handling providers with kid gloves. We want everyone to be happy, but we want them to be able to produce, and ultimately they're the ones who make our patients happy. So you do handle them, or you should maybe in your culture a little bit differently than you would an assistant or a front office person. So I don't know that perhaps it is, you know, for a doctor, the hardest thing, dealing with another provider under the roof.
And you know what? I don't even know what to call the front. I know dentists, hygienists, assistants, and make sure you never abbreviate assistants or they'll think you're calling them an ass. But I don't know what to call the front desk because, I don't want to. Front desk, how would you like to have a job that was named after a piece of furniture? If she's the front desk, am I the back door? And then what's the best term for the front office? Is it receptionist, or is that sexist, or is that bad?
I think it depends. It depends on how big your practice is. You could have somebody who is a receptionist, patient concierge, however you want to verbalize it. We refer to everyone as office administration because hopefully those people are all cross-trained and they're doing more than just that job.
But I'm talking about a one-word Urban Dictionary. What would
I
it
would
be?
say office administrator is what I would say.
Office? And John, what would you call him?
Creatively, as a marketer and advertiser, I might say director of first impressions.
Director of first impressions? Huh.
Like I said,
it is. But that was an interesting distinction that you move the hygienist right to the provider. That's a really unique. That's a profound deal. One of the things. I don't know if I'm right or wrong on this. I assume I'm right because I'm me, and my children will assume I'm wrong because I'm dad. But I look at HR like baseball, and I really do. I 3 strikes and you're out, and if you can't pitch, I'm not going to take you to a course and teach you how to pitch. I'm going to get rid of you and trade you for someone that can pitch. So I and 32 years later, you can look at how long it took for this to work, because my business is 32 years old, and all the men and women that have been running this thing for 20 years have all been with me about 20, 25. So it took me 5 to 10 years to finally find the team. And then those people are still all here. So I'm the HR guy where I don't know where you got your attitude. I don't know why you like work, hate work. I don't know, but I'm just gonna do what I did to Nolan Ryan. I'd go draft me a new one, right? I'd just find another player. Then there's other people that say, see that short, fat, bald pitcher guy? If you just worked with him, he'd be the next Nolan Ryan. I swear to God, Howard could be Nolan Ryan with the right coach and whatever. So my question to you is I think HR is managing the hiring, firing process, and other people think HR is developing and growing this person. Where do you see HR?
I mean, I think obviously I'm going to walk the line. I think there's a place for both. In the kind of practice that I work in day to day outside of 406, it definitely is just like you've said, 3 strikes and you're out, trading up. If somebody leaves and can't do that job, then we'll draft somebody else. That's at times a heartless approach, but if we're all understanding what the culture is, then we understand that as well. And hopefully those people who maybe can't pitch will realize they can't pitch and come to you and say, but I could work in sterilization. And then you're like, hey, I've never thought of that. Let me put you in sterilization. And maybe that's the place where that person can thrive. Not every office can do that. Not every office has a sterilization coordinator, so it definitely, I think both are acceptable, but it also depends what your mission and what your culture is.
Yeah, are you the Oakland A's or are you the New York Yankees? I mean,
perfect example. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, where are you exactly as a practice? So it just depends on, what you're able to handle. And, sometimes, heck, even Mike Trout has a hitting coach. So, even some of those guys that are the heavy hitters per se still get coached from time to time because, everyone can get a little bit better.
You know who's the biggest fan of trading up that I've ever met in my life? My ex-wife. She says the next guy was a million times better.
That's funny. I tell John, my next husband is going to be this. And he says, good luck finding a next husband with 5 kids.
Oh, my God. So another thing. So in HR, I mean, I find humans to be the most complex. I mean, I don't even like the word entropy in physics. When I first learned entropy in physics, I'm like, why don't they just call that humans? I mean, it makes so much more sense. You wouldn't have to teach them a new word in physics class. You just said, oh, what's random chaos? That's humans. just total entropy. And when I see a bunch of entropy and confusion, what I have in my office for 32 years, a lot of turnover in the first day, week, 6 months, or a year. My team's going to eat you up and spit you out on the first day. And if you survive, you're going to get their culture. And the culture is the patient. I say my staff comes first and my patients come second, because anytime somebody's gone off on my staff, I mean, I've called 911 about once every 10 years on an employee. I say, you're not talking that way. And you go, all right, I leave. And the 911 say, well, he left. Yeah, and I pay a shitload of taxes. He just came in here. He disturbed the peace. He dropped the F-bomb. She's crying. And you're asking me to still come down here? Give me all my Arizona State income money back, and then you can stay at home. So my staff comes first. My patients come second. But when I don't understand people, I go back and just hire someone that fits in more. But some of these consultants will come in and they'll have scripts to answering a new patient phone call. I'm like, dude, if she can't talk to a human, I mean, really? 7.8 billion humans, and you found the one that needs a cheat sheet on how to talk to another human? If she can't just normally talk to another person, I'm pretty sure I'd trade her out. I think the new patient phone call, the incoming phone call, I mean, this is what I don't understand. You drive around, I grew up in Wichita, Kansas. You're in Oklahoma. I spent half my life all around that territory because my mom's brother, Mark lived down there and he had 7 kids and all that stuff. But, my gosh, I mean, it's just, the incoming call, what's the chance that someone calls and you can convert them to a scheduled appointment? And then I go in the dental office and he's saying, well, what root canal file do you use? And I'm like, I could do what golf clubs does Tiger Woods use? I bet Tiger Woods could beat your butt in golf if he used the worst clubs sold at a garage sale. I mean, they don't even track the incoming call. They don't even track the conversion. And then the consultant's teaching her, how are you doing today? How's the weather? How are you? And I'm just like, oh my God. So the new patient call, they could have called 2 million dentists around the world and they called you. Who's going to answer that phone? And is that person going to convert them to come in? What are your thoughts about? And that's another reason I would never go into your business, because you could do everything right and deliver up that tea, and then they call, and here's what they get. 1/3 of the time, answering machine. Another 1/3 time, can you please hold? And then they eventually just hang up. So that was my rant on the new patient call. What's your rant on the new patient call? And do you think it's that important?
Absolutely. I mean, the new patient call is vital. In any practice, if you answer the phone and it's a new patient, there should be some sort of preference for that call. Yes, treating our patients every single day is vital to the practice as well. But if you don't have new patients coming in with new treatment, you end up with a whole lot of treatment completed patients. And that doesn't really grow your practice or pay your bills. So we definitely want that new patient call to be priority. Definitely don't put them on hold, no matter what. Even if it's, I don't really know, I haven't really experienced that before. We can figure that out when you come in. Always gearing back to the when you come in. We also say don't put up any roadblocks to scheduling. Don't ask them their social. Don't get their insurance. Don't say, call me back once you figure out who your insurance is. We'll do this first appointment complimentary. And when you come into the office, we can get your insurance information and give you a full breakdown of what they'll cover. That new patient phone call is vital for sure. Like I said, treatment complete patients don't pay your bills.
And if you've been coming to me I opened up in 87. I still have patients from 87. By the way, I want you to know that I'm 58. If you're 80 and older, I'm like probably the most handsome guy in Phoenix. I've been told that by several 80-year-old ladies who I swear to God only come in to get a big old hug from Howie. But so she's been coming to you every 3 to 6 months for 32 years. She'll call back. But this new patient doesn't know you from Adam or Eve. So, but I've noticed a lot of people are starting to market their advertising says, if you're a new patient, call this number. If you're an old patient, call that number. Are you a supporter of that? Do you like that? What do you think of that tactic?
No, I am way against having dedicated phone numbers for advertising. And you've probably heard this on some of the other podcasts before, because I don't think it's unique, certainly not my idea, but there are people that do want to dedicate a phone number, like to a mailer or to a Facebook campaign or to a radio ad or whatever it might be. And they want to put these different numbers here, and that'll tell us exactly, how many calls we're getting from this. I really want you to have the same phone number, because I want it. Hopefully it's something easy to remember, so they can just pick up the phone and call you anytime. But nowadays, the journey that a new patient takes is you never really know where they're going with it. So especially depending on the type of personality that you hit. If you have a person who's super statistical, they're going to jump down and just, Google, do a bunch of research, and, they want to know as much as they can before they make that decision. So they're going to go to the website, Facebook page, Instagram. Maybe they saw an ad. Then they're going to, go through Google and look at reviews, and they've been 6 different places. But really, what was the proximate cause of that? Well, you don't really know. You can't just, give the credit to the phone number itself. And there'll be some people that, oh, I do need a dentist. Oh, there's that phone number. Boom. I'm going to call right quick and go from there. So I'm a big proponent of hopefully you've got one easy to remember phone number. And then you've got somebody, an administration person at the front desk who's answering the phone and, hey, I appreciate you calling us. Do you mind if I ask how you heard about us? And at least you get an idea. It may not be the exact answer, but I mean, because again, they may have seen a TV commercial and then ran across Facebook or whatever else, and they're just going to say, oh yeah, I saw it on Facebook or something, just to give you an answer. But you'll never have the answer if you don't ask questions. And if you just dedicate a phone number, I mean, then to me that just sounds disingenuous if you don't. Hey, I appreciate you calling. How'd you hear about us? Who do we have to thank for that?
And from my experience, a call tracker, which is what you're basically saying. That's the term that's used. If we market this flyer and we put this specific number on it, then that'll give us a call tracker. We use call trackers just to see how our people are on the phone, because oftentimes it's not the new patient who's calling that number. They may see that and then they'll Google you and they'll call through Google. So it's hardly ever, when you listen to those call tracking calls, it's pretty comical. It's hardly ever what it was designed to do. Mainly, it just allows you how your front office is doing on the phone.
Now, are you still working in a dental office, or you are?
Yes.
The office I was talking about. What was his name?
Dr. John Phillips.
John Phillips. The one I'm talking about. So you're still in a dental office, keeping it real.
Yeah.
I've noticed, I want to get to the pandemic stuff. I've noticed, the pandemic now, when you go to a website, every website's got some message, they're messaging something about that. What are your thoughts about all that stuff? And by the way, I just want to tell you that I know that half this country half the world just wants the government to solve all their problems. I mean, really, so that every website for the rest of my life I have to click and accept the cookie. Whose freaking idea was that? I mean, you sign up an app, I gotta read the terms and conditions. Have you seen Facebook's terms and conditions printed out in paper and stacked up? It's 3.5 feet. Okay, so you got an American who hasn't read one book in a year, and he's going to read 3.5 feet. So they just click yes. So the government's best idea is that every flipping website I go to the rest of my life, I have to click and accept this term. I mean, if that's not enough to make you want to just completely burn down Washington, D.C. and start over. I mean, it's kind of like HIPAA. I mean, they start with some little bitty idea, and where HIPAA came from, because I'm from Kansas, and that was Senator Kassenbaum. It's it came out of the AIDS deal. Well, you don't want people to read your health history. Oh, so we've gone from I don't want someone to know I have an STD to now all this regulation. So now on a website, I gotta do all that. So that's my rant on the deal. I mean, if they want to have the department, if they want to have the some agency look over all the terms and conditions and regulate from there, that's good. But I don't want to click accept on every flipping website I go to till the end of time. And I guarantee you, when people say, is there an eternity? Yes, it's called a government agency. Once they start a government program, it will be there. After the sun burns out, that government agency will still be there. But what do you think about all this COVID messaging? I mean, every website I go to before I do anything, I got to read your COVID announcement. Do you think that's good? Is it spot on? What's your critique of all that?
Well, me personally, as an advertiser, I think it's good to have it there because, like you said, it's half and half. There's people that are truly afraid of it, and then there are the other half of the people aren't concerned about it at all. So although it might be kind of an annoyance to someone to see it who's not afraid of it, like whatever, but there's another half, and you don't want to cut that group out if you don't make them feel comfortable in some way. There was a thread on Dental Town not long ago that went on forever. And it was a dentist asking like, hey, I'm going to put some plexiglass up, at my desk. And, but what's the point of it? My employees going to wear face masks and it looks ugly. And, I feel like they're going to like a cheap gas station to check out. And I mean, really, to me, the point of it is not so much, it's not aesthetically pleasing. And yeah, it does take away some of that personal interaction. But at the end of the day, it is just a visual barrier that says, I care about your safety. So I'm going to put this here to help mitigate and make you feel safer about coming into our office. And so if you show people that you're doing those kinds of things, your website, your social media page, or even your advertising in general could or should have it in there. So at least they know you're doing something about it to help make them feel more comfortable. The people that aren't afraid to come in, if they want to come see you, if they need to come see you, they're coming. But it's for that other half of the population that might be a little bit apprehensive about it. And they say, oh, well, they're taking all these steps to make sure that we're going to stay safe. So they're going to be a little more apt to come in or call.
And working in an office, those COVID messages are important, because a lot of offices, even in our area, we open back up May 1st. And there's still a lot of offices that are not open. There's a lot of dentists that haven't returned. So having it there, we're in a town in Oklahoma where people are not scared of COVID. We had, I think, 1,700 missed appointments in the 6 weeks we were shut down. And in calling those patients to get them reappointed, I think I had 2 people of the 1,700 that told me, I'll wait it out. And the rest of them were like, if you were open May 15th or March 15th, I'd have been there, So I think it is important for the people who are looking for a place to go, not necessarily for your current patients, because your current patients know what you're about. They know what your culture is. But definitely for a new patient, I think it would be important.
Yeah, I've said it on the show many times. I cannot stand the term the United States of America, because no one talks about, Africa's got 58 countries. No one talks about Africa. They talk about, you're talking about South Africa, you're talking about Egypt, you're talking about Nigeria. Europe. No one compares Germany to Greece. How do you compare Oklahoma City to Anchorage, Alaska, or Manhattan to Miami? I grew up in Wichita, and Phoenix is completely different. We've gone from spiders to cacti, and I'm in Arizona, and I have 4 kids, and I have 5. But anyway, my 4 kids, they think the whole corona thing is like getting a cold. They're like, really? You're going to go ruin your whole life so that one day you don't catch the cold? And it's so sad, because, my God, to hear them at my door talking through the screen, and the little grandkids say, well, can we get in? And to hear my own son at turn, no, Daddy's scared. Grandpa's scared. He's afraid. He's afraid he's going to get the corona. And then the little boys, why is Grandpa scared of that? It's like, oh, my God, this is just a nightmare. My mom doesn't believe. My mom was Catholic. So, have you ever had a Catholic friend that wear that scapula?
Yeah.
Have you heard of a scapular?
Yeah.
Yeah, with a Virgin Mary on it. My mom thinks that'll protect you from the corona. So yeah, there's 2 Americas. When you're right now, half of America would go on just like the pre-pandemic if you wouldn't get in their way. And I see what they're talking about, because everybody's talking about all these Arizona, Florida cases exploding. The mortality rate isn't exploding. You know what I mean? And when they die, they all have something in common. They're old, fat, and bald like me. You don't want to be over 85. You don't want to be over 75. I'm going to be 58 next month, and hopefully that virus can tell I'm not 65. Hopefully it can just look at me and say, and flap someone older. But yeah, I get it. But the other problem with that in dentistry is that, so who is scared? Well, that's 65, 75, 85. Well, that's the lady buying all the implants and dentures and all on 4s. Who's not scared? The 30-year-old who just wants a cleaning and 1 filling. So it's kind of like in Phoenix anyway. I can't speak for every practice, but in Phoenix, the ones I'm having scared of my office are the ones with the big treatment plan. So what we've been doing, and I've sold this idea from some of my friends, is that when they say over the phone, well, I don't know. I'm afraid. I don't want to get it. I feel at 70 that if I get this damn coronavirus, I'm going to die. And I don't want to come into dentistry and say, well, your treatment plan is $2,500. So if you pay for that on your American Express, Visa, MasterCard, whatever, then we'll schedule a 3-hour appointment where you're going to be the only one here. It's going to be the dentist and the assistant and maybe a greeter at the front door, but this is only, and that's been a big deal. That's
Absolutely.
been a marketing firm. So, but they got to pay in advance, and if they don't show, they forfeited the money. But oh my God, Arizona. When you go gas up the car and you talk to anybody driving a truck and say, "Are you worried about this coronavirus?" You're just like, I mean, So it's these are just very strange times.
I mean, we do. I think as in the dentistry world, we do create aerosol. So I think there is more of a concern than there would be at the gas station, obviously. But I think you're absolutely correct. Handling it with kit gloves, patients who are concerned, scheduling them, bringing them into one part of the practice where they're not seeing anyone else, not having your lobbies opened. John mentioned plexiglass, anything that we can do that gives the consumer confidence. That's what we need to do in dentistry, whatever that takes. And we did that in the practice that I work in. And of course, if you're a dentist and you're open, you should be seeing record numbers right now because there are other practices that are not open. So, whatever you can do, hopefully the next few months are going to make up for the weeks that you were closed.
That's well put, man. I mean, that's just so succinct. Come on, dude. If a quarter of the offices are closed right now, why aren't you a quarter busier? I mean, why aren't you busier? But did you say plexiglass? I must have, because we installed wine glasses. You're saying plexiglass?
Yeah. We're using plexiglass at the front counters. Yes, wine, just like you mentioned earlier about doctors and HR issues, this place would be so great if there weren't any patients, if there weren't any employees. This would be a great place to work. It would also be great if we had wine.
You hear a lot about the new patient experience. What are your thoughts on the new patient experience? And then of course the people that are going to throw that under the bus saying, well, it should be the everyday experience. Because Sam Walton, I do think in reading Sam Walton's autobiography, remember, people read autobiographies. If you really want to know what someone thought, and he has an autobiography, and then you say you read it, and then you read the biography, I don't care what some librarian thought about Sam Walton in the library. I don't know what Sam thought. And if you want to know the crystal clear example of that, read Armand Hammer's autobiography, then read the #1 selling biography. It's like two different people. So, but Sam Walton did not believe in marketing because he didn't think mom was that dumb. She goes, oh, so let me get this right. So on 4th of July, the ceiling fan is half off, but on July 5th, it's regular price. How do I explain that to your mom? And then all the money I'm spending on advertising the 4th of July weekend, where am I going to get that money? Oh, by raising prices on everything else. So he did not like advertising. He wouldn't do sales. He said, every day, same price. So some people take that to extremes in dentistry and say, no, you need an everyday patient experience. But most people in dental town are talking about the new patient experience. What do you think of the new patient experience? And is that very different than the everyday experience? What's unique about the new patient experience versus the everyday experience?
Well, I mean, obviously the first thing you're going to want to do is my thing is you want to make them feel like they're the most important person in the building. Greet them, everyone greet them in a special way. Tell them that you're glad to see them. Don't ask them how you're doing, because obviously you don't want to get a patient to say an answer you don't want other people in the waiting room, to hear kind of thing. Make sure they're introduced to anyone new they come in contact with. They're guests in your office after all. So, another thing I guess would be reiterate why they're there every time you introduce them. So that way that lets the patient know that everyone in the building is on the same page. They're just made to feel like there is no one more important in that building at that time than the patient that's right there in front of them. And at the end of the day, that patient experience makes it easier for them to accept treatment. People are going to want to do business or get things done in places where, they feel like they're liked and feel like that they're important. I could go a lot of places and get better food in other restaurants, but man, I always enjoy the conversation when the owner comes up and, we laugh and joke about things. I go buy sports equipment from a guy that, we banter about the Red Sox and Yankees. Just places where I feel like I'm more important. That's kind of what, I want, offices to be able to convey is that, hey, this person is super important because they're sitting right here in front of me.
But then it should become part of your culture. It should be the new patient experience is unique only because that's their first time. A new patient tour, give them a tour of the office, new patient gifts, the gift of reciprocation, all of those things play a factor. But the second time they come in, it's still John from Chickasha with 5 kids. He's adopted 2. You still have his story, and that still makes him feel unique. If we focus on the new patient experience, I think everyone takes better care of all of the patients. And the new patient, it's a system. It's a system that teaches your staff, your doctors, how to care for people on their first visit. And then you can expand on that on all their subsequent visits. But it definitely should be a part of your culture for sure.
We were talking about, that they hire people that can't even talk to the phone. I mean, the girl that answered my phone, Valerie, she could talk to a tree for an hour. If you sat her on a park bench and no one's there, she'd probably talk to herself. She doesn't need any index card about where to go. So let's continue that conversation with patient presentation of the treatment plan. How come when you have 4 fillings, some dentists get, 2/3 of all their patients to get the 4 fillings done, and then the next guy gets 20% done, and then of course when to me, dentists, if I say, well, what makes a good dentist? They always talk about, well, I got my MAGD and FAGD, and I got my diplomat, and they got all this alphabet soup stuff, and I got it too. But then I got them all. I just condensed them all to BFD, and you say you're the better dentist. Well, if 10 people come into your office, the national average is that if 10 people come in with a radiographic cavity, I'm not talking about for treatment planning, Invisalign or cosmetics, or I'm talking about a cavity. So they come in, you take x-rays, and all the oral radiologists say, yeah, that's a cavity, that needs drilled, fill, and build. Okay, my homies in America, they do 38% of those. And then, so that's 1 in 3. So if a dentist across the street's doing 2 and 3, and then I'll go back and I'll say, well, which one's the better dentist? Like, oh, he does. He went to the Pankey Institute, and he uses a rubber dam, and he uses composite, and that guy's no good. He uses amalgam. And I'll say, well, I think the best dentist would have been the one that removed all the cavities and filled them with butter. I mean, if it was my grandkids and my options were, I can go to John, she'll remove all 4 cavities but fill it with butter, or he can go to you and you'll just fix one of them with gold or silver or whatever. I mean, you got to get rid of the infection. These guys can only convince 1 out of 3 people with a cavity, an infection in between their teeth, to get it fixed. So they can't answer the phone without a cue card. What could you coach them or tell them to convince my grandchildren after I'm gone and passed away that when you tell them they have a cavity, that they get out there American Express and get it done?
I mean, for me, inside of practice, it's intraoral cameras. Can you see the decay? Not using limiting terms when you're talking about a condition. You have a small cavity. Nobody's going to treat a small cavity. Do you see the decay? Can you see that black spot? We need to teach dentists to minimize the treatments and maximize the patient's conditions. Who is going to watch the cavity grow? We're just going to watch that. Why? The decay gets bigger. And then it's more expensive. If we don't treat it when it's a 5-surface filling, then it needs a crown. And if we don't treat it when it's a crown, then it needs a root canal. So, educating your patients, using an intraoral camera, not limiting the turns, all of those things are going to help you better take care of your patients. On the same hand, fillings are some of the most time consuming, some of the least productive appointments, but you gain your patient's trust at the filling. It's when they need it much later that, doing the right thing on the front end is going to come back in tenfold, if something else goes wrong.
I want to add one thing to that, and that is, I thought it was pretty cool. No one fixes a small cavity. That's you called that a self-limiting word?
Yeah, just a limiting term. We don't
self-limiting word.
Yeah.
But here's what I see the young kids do. So when I fix this, I nipped this about 32 years ago. Everybody's always willing to gamble with your money, but they don't want to gamble with their own money. So someone will come in, they're 2 snaps off of the gum line, and they're like, "Oh, I'm a hero. I'm Spider-Man. I'm going to do a root canal, post build-up, and a crown." And then 6 months later, they walk in with that crown post still, and they're like, "Well, don't look at me. I did what I could. It's not my fault." It's like, no, it is your fault. Because let's say the average American lives to be 75 years. Well, if your work lasted 5 years, what's 75 divided by 5? That's how many times they'd have to replace that thing. So so yours lasted 6 months. They're going to live to be 75. What? They're going to have to fix this 150 times? So I tell dentists, you have to be aggressive enough that it lasts 5 years, because I'm warranted. So I paid you for this root canal build-up and crown thing. 6 months later, everything they paid is credited to the correct treatment plan, which would have been an extraction and a single implant or a 3-unit bridge. And by the way, and if you're going to send me a letter about how, "I can't believe you offered a 3-unit bridge, Howard, you hack, filing down those 2 virgin teeth." I'm sorry, all the teeth are virgin. I've been a dentist for 32 years. I've never looked in the mouth and seen 2 molars going at it, okay? They're all virgin teeth. And how come you have no problem drilling out the bone in the sinus, but you have a problem drilling out enamel? It's like, because when I talk to my friends that are ENTs, they do not like it when you stick an implant in a bone graft. They all look at me saying, "Why the hell would they do a sinus lift and put a bunch of bone up there? There were 2 virgin teeth right next to it. Couldn't you hang it off of that?" It's like, look, the ENTs want virgin sinuses. The dentists worship enamel. Both of them are nuts. The question is, and by the way, look how I treat playing you 2 different. If John lost his front tooth and you lost your front tooth, I would do an implant and a crown on John. He's a man, 27% more muscle mass. His lips hang down. He won't even care. But a blonde? Oh, my God. I could nail the cosmetics with a 3-unit bridge, the gum. I can beauty, because I know blondes want beauty first, and John probably wants form and function first, but I can do much better anterior aesthetics with bridges than implants and crown. And if some dentist tells you my single unit incisor crown, implant crown, is sexier than your 3-unit bridge, well, first of all, I might be correct, because I wouldn't have done the 3-unit bridge. I would have done a 3-unit bridge and filed down a virgin tooth and done a 4th crown.
Veneer. That's right.
Yeah, or veneer. But women, it's beauty first. It's all that stuff like that. So, I just had to throw that in there.
I think you hit on a very, very good point, especially for dentists coming out of school, new dentists. In our offices, we should be showing all the options. Let patients decide. Present the Cadillac, present the Chevy Impala. Let them decide what they want to do. You can tell them all day long, "You're the expert, these are your options," and then happily give them what they can afford. When you say, "I would treatment plan an implant on John," you'd be correct using personality. John, he is a C function guy, where I don't care. I'm really thriftier than John is. If John needs it and it's the highest price it's ever been in 10 years, John doesn't care. If I need it, I'm like, "Ooh, I'm going to try to get it when it's on sale. So I'm going to go for a 3-unit bridge. That's probably more affordable." But then because I went for the 3-unit bridge, I'm going to add that 4th crown for symmetry because I save so much money on the bridge. So, I think, dentists should be looking at those factors. What kind of personality is your patient? And then offering all the options and letting the patient decide. on what they want to do rather than, have the treatment kind of shoved down their throat. And then they walk out the door and they do nothing.
I couldn't even imagine. I mean, you must have a lot of self-esteem, seriously, because, I mean, if I was at Safeway and after I unloaded all my groceries, I said, here's a coupon to save 25 cents off Folgers coffee. I mean, I'd rather just die. I mean, she's probably sitting there thinking, what a loser. Did you really cut out a coupon to save? No. It's a joke. It's a joke. I mean, I can't believe you stand there at the register and get those coupons out. I want to ask you a very controversial question now. I want to assure you that no matter how you answer that, you're going to make people mad and upset. Because on Dentaltown, these are very emotional times. I mean, the traffic on Dentaltown has doubled since the pandemic. In fact, I'm hoping that when this pandemic passes, the bubonic plague comes out again, and Dentaltown will just go to the next level up. But the deal is, they want to charge for this PPE stuff. I mean, they're buying all this N95 mask and all this stuff, and they're telling people on the phone, when you come here, you're going to have a $25 PPE fee, and the insurance doesn't cover it, and you're going to give me that cash when you walk in the door. Well, what do you think about that? Go ahead. And which half are you going to piss off first? Tell me which half of the dental.
Yeah, probably the dentists who are paying for PPE. But, I don't want roadblocks. I don't want to lose a patient over a $35 PPE charge. And as an office administrator, as somebody who works with collections and billing, and dentists oftentimes are not a part of those conversations with patients. And they really shouldn't be. Should the person who's doing the drilling per se be the one who determines how much a patient can afford? Probably not. There's probably an intermediate that can come in and take care of that part of the conversation. But I mean, at the end of the day, if we lose a patient because of a $35 PPE charge, and that person is like my family, with 7 of us, how much?
There were 7 in my family too. So
yeah.
You came from a family of 7 kids?
Well, just 2, John and I and our 5 is 7 of us. So.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about your childhood.
Dentistry is going to come out of our 7 versus your $35 PPE charge. There's a cost to doing business. Everyone has it. There's a cost. And, maybe you raise your fees in other places, but I don't know that having a PPE charge, in some ways you're capitalizing on the pandemic. And from where I'm at, that doesn't feel good to me. I don't want to lose a patient for $35.
Okay. The other very highly emotional thing is the insurance isn't paying for the new PPE fee. The patients don't want to pay it. So my homies on Dentaltown, I'd say about a quarter of them are saying, that's it. I'm just dropping all my insurance.
I mean, I think that's one way to go, but you have to look at the nature of why you were wanting to do that in the first place. If you're a good enough dentist, if you have great systems in place, if you have the ability to make your patients feel important, insurance at the end of the day isn't really relevant. I'm in a practice where insurance is not a part of the equation. It's not. We're out of network.
Dental insurance is not a part of the equation?
It's not.
Because you're in Chickasha?
We're in Chickasha. 45% of our patients don't have dental insurance. We're in network with 3 dental insurance companies, 3, and they're not even the big umbrella companies. We are a member of Dental of Oklahoma, but only the premier plan. So if what you're selling is good, then patients will pay what you're selling. If they're a patient who's dependent upon insurance, then I don't take your insurance. You're out of network. You are subject to balance billing. So you pay everything up front, and then we'll file the claim for you. And if they want to pay you $8 for your $163 cleaning, that's them. We'll discount fees, because at the end of the day, me fighting an insurance company and dealing with insurance aging and having a whole person set aside to do that, so your insurance was going to pay $850. Fine. I'll give you $850 off of your treatment. And then we don't even have to file your claims. We don't even have to worry about that. So, I mean, I think you could come at it from every angle, from fee hikes to PPE. If you're taking care of your people and if your culture is just designed for that, then no matter what you charge, people are going to pay it.
So you take 3 interns. I'm just curious, since Chickasha is the home of the University of Science and Arts of Oklahoma, were those 3 interns because your population is 16,000, but they got the university? Is that because that was what the university insurance was?
No, I mean, honestly, I think we just don't want to be told what to do by the insurance companies. We look at insurance plans every single year. We analyze the plan. We see what the benefit is for the patient and what the benefit is for the provider. And, for them to ask me to discount my crown, and then they'll just pay a percentage of that. I don't want to be within those parameters. And I think being in network with insurance is important when you're a young dentist. So I want to make that clear because I know the majority of your audience.
And by young, you mean anyone under 59?
Yeah, yes, or just beginning as a dentist. I think being a part of insurance helps the insurance company get clients and it helps the doctor get patients. And so in the beginning of any career, I think it's important. And then I think after a while, you just kind of stop wanting to be told what to do. So we're in network with the state of Oklahoma Insurance, which teachers, people that we know it's going to help, we're in network with. And we're in network with the Premier plan because it's a great plan for the patients as well as us. They'll accept our fee schedule. And then there's the local hospital that we're in network with as well. And everybody else, we're out of network. And if you call on insurances and you get breakdowns, their percentages are the same, whether you're in network or out of network. It's just sometimes that their fees are based on their allowable, and in all your years of dentistry, how many insurance companies have called you and asked you what you're charging to get what that allowable should be? It's just kind of an arbitrary figure. So, if you have a product that is good and you make people feel special and you take care of them and you guarantee your work, they'll pay what you're asking.
And I want to say, in other words, where she was saying, I loved it, charging a PPE fee is a roadblock. She wants to get rid of roadblocks. I mean, so if you study politics, they say if you want less of something, regulate it and tax the hell out of it. And if you want more of something, right, don't regulate it and don't tax it. So in economics, the tax is the price. Well, if you want more of something, lower your price. Ask Southwest Airlines, ask Walmart, ask IKEA, ask anybody. When you lower the price, you expand the market. And if you want a smaller market, raise your price. So she's saying this is a roadblock. Government, every time they have an idea, it's going to be solved with 2 hammers. One's going to tax it, one's going to regulate it. And after they beat the hell out of it with taxes and regulation, you're like, well, why did it die? What happened? Well, you happened. This country was fine before 1776 and, not fine before 1776, but they just seem to make it worser and worser and worser. I don't even know if worser is even a word. That's how bad it is. So if they call you up and you say, well, you got to give me a PPE fee, $35 entry. Hell, just if you say ladies night, ladies get in free. I don't know. Gee, do more ladies go on ladies night or less ladies? Seemed like when I was in college, ladies' night free with 2 free drinks was the only night the ladies went to the bar. That was Thursday night in Omaha. So the bottom line is, keep one eye on your patient and one eye on costs, and use your God-given talent to use your brain to figure out how to do this faster, easier, higher quality, lower price, smaller. And if you can make all your dentistry faster, easier, higher quality, lower costs, then you will give more Americans the freedom to afford dentistry. And once you start getting all pissed off and frustrated and, and raising PPE fees and dropping benefits and getting all pissy, you're going to have less patience. I'm sorry. I know it's tough. I know you're in pain. So I want to ask you some other things. On a website, do you think all those forms should be filled out on the website? Should that all be virtual? Is that to be expected, or is that an age thing? If you have Instagram and TikTok, fill them out online, and if you're on Viagra, we'll help you fill out the forms for you. I mean, what's your thoughts on the online forms?
When I get to an office, and it probably has to do with personality type, it's probably not going to be for everyone. However, if I can minimize my wait time and my time inside the building, and fill some things out online, I'm probably going to want to do that. Because sometimes, if I go to the doctor, or I take my kids and it's someplace I've never been before, they hand you this clipboard and I need you to fill this out. So just the top sheet? No, you got to fill out all of it. I mean, what am I supposed to do over here? Quit my job? In my appointment in like 30 minutes? And so it can be super frustrating, especially if you got to stop and think like, well, God, what is the name of that medication that I take? And you fumble around. If you're at home and you're able to fill it out online, that obviously makes it a little bit better. Kind of makes things go a little bit more smoothly. Obviously, it helps the office out at the same time, because then they're going to have to process all the information. But for me, I like things to be easy, but at the same time, don't make that, like Keli said, kind of a roadblock, because at the end of the day, I may also be in a hurry, not be in the mood to do it, not have a chance to do it, forget about it, and then I get there, like, oh, did you fit everything out online? But I mean, just give me the option.
Yeah, I think you have to consider what your target audience is. Yes, if you can do a TikTok, you can do your online applications or online paperwork. But if I'm marketing towards all on four, chances are good, especially in my market, they may not even have viable internet. I mean, we're still talking HughesNet out where we live. And I don't know if you've seen those national commercials, but it's terrible internet. In any regard, so we definitely have to walk the line, just like everything else. You're considering what your target audience is, and you may have some that need paper, and you may have some that want to do it online, and both is fine.
So I want to ask you I'm trying to keep it more focused on my two drivers are. I don't care about. I turn 58 next month. I'm not worried about 58-year-old Dennis. You know how I'm worried about 25-year-old Dennis who just got out of school, $400,000 in debt. Could you imagine graduating in the middle of a pandemic? I mean, and it was their fault. They should have been born at least 2 years earlier, or stayed in the incubator for a couple of years. But they're coming out of school. It's the middle of a pandemic, so I want to try to focus on them. A lot of and the faster my homies can get up to speed, they're going to bring those kids back for jobs. But if your office is down 25%, they're actually letting the associate go. So I have a bunch of dentists in my backyard that were being associates, and I always tell them it's the best thing that happened to them, because it is, because, they've been out of school 4 years. They've had 4 different jobs. Why have you had 4 different jobs in 4 years? Because when you go to 8 years of college and become a dentist, a physician, a lawyer, you're never going to agree with anyone else. You're always the smartest guy in the room. I've never heard a dentist work for someone else for a year and say, yeah, that's exactly how I would have done it. They're like, I'm so sick of this place, and then they get another job, and then they're sick of that place. So usually, I got out of school May 11th and had my office open September 21st. These young kids have to go get a job, a different job every year for 5 years. And finally, the only reason they open up their own job is because they're no longer a fear of owning their own business. They just are never going to work for someone else again. They have to get to the point where they're going to jump off a cliff or open up their own. So I just say, go open up your own damn dental office. But when they do open up these dental offices, or my older homies who I want them to start going, I say, they say, well, I don't know. I just don't think I can advertise during a pandemic. I mean, can you advertise during a pandemic? I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, can you imagine being in the middle of the bubonic plague and John's over there say, hey, get your teeth whitened, $50 off teeth whitening. They're like, did you not hear Ring Around the Posy, pocket full of, So can you advertise in the middle of this pandemic?
Well, you certainly can. How recommended it really is probably depends on, where you are. Like we mentioned earlier, in Oklahoma, those folks, they're not afraid of the pandemic. They're out running around business as usual. You go into a restaurant, they might space out the tables, the waiter might be wearing a mask or whatever. Sometimes we were someplace not long ago where they weren't. So with that, and then you go down to another area and, like you said, as I say, Denver, for example, they're still hidden away. They're not getting out. They're not doing anything. They're masked up, double masked. So, be aware of where you are exactly. And when you do decide, one or the other, okay, well, I'm going to advertise because this area, people are moving and shaking, don't seem to be too worried about it. At least give a part of your message, either it's social media, your website, or whatever your advertising medium is. Let them know what you're doing to help mitigate, against the coronavirus, because we talked about that earlier. Some are afraid, some are not. You still want to cater to those people that need the work done, but might still be a little apprehensive about getting out. But if your area is just completely shut down, you might just kind of take to the social media stuff and kind of update things on your own and don't necessarily advertise. But when the doors do open, know when you're going to be open, get the right message out there, telling the people that, hey, it's going to be safe here. This is what I'm doing to make sure that I'm keeping you guys safe. I care about, you as my patients, and, your safety is my number one goal. Because at the end of the day, they know DDS, they know you can do dentistry. They expect you to do a good job. But, are you able to make them feel comfortable? Are you able to make them feel safe? So when you decide to advertise during a pandemic, those are the things that I would put out there in the forefront.
Well, and coming from a psychology background as well, a lot of these people are under stress we've never seen. We've never been a part of a pandemic in our life. And that can cause a lot of psychological, physiological. If your office is closed or has been closed, you have a sea of people who need treatment. They're hurting. More toothaches are going to happen in a pandemic than when the world is fantastic and everyone's on vacation. So there are people that need to be seen, and these people may not have a dentist home. These people may go to a dentist that is not open or is not going to be open. So, we want you out in front. If you're going to be open, if you're going to be a practice that's going to come back from this and rebound from this, then you have patients that need to be seen. You have people that are hurting. You did crowns and they're still in temporaries. You did dentures and they need an adjustment. There's patients that you have to cater to, and figuring out the message that's going to make those people feel comfortable and even drive people to your practice. I don't think is unreasonable. I think it's helpful, instead of just not advertising and seeing what happens. Again, you have bills to pay. So, getting new patients into the practice is going to be important for sure.
That was a great rant. What has changed in the reopening? Does anything change in your marketing? Does anything change in your website? But what is, as these states are reopening again? And then, not to be Debbie Downer, but when, I have friends that are epidemiologists from ASU, and but anyway, we're all reading the same note. This is so cool about this smartphone. I mean, could you imagine how differently World War II would have been if everybody would have been taking videos and selfies and sending them home and all this kind of stuff? Very, very different time. So everybody's reading the same thing. So everybody believes that in the spring, we had the initial outbreak, maybe 5% of the planet got it, and then Corona dies out in the summer because humans 85% of humans live in the northern hemisphere, not the southern hemisphere, just like 85% live in the eastern hemisphere, not in the west. We're over here in the Americas. The Americas aren't even 15% of the people. But pretty much everyone lives north of the equator in the other hemisphere. And in the 60 years of studying the coronavirus, it peaks in the fall, dies out in the summer, comes out in the fall. So we had this big bubble thing. It's supposed to be dying out now in the summer, even though it's pretty contagious. And then in the fall, it's supposed to have another big peak. So, the office was closed on St. Patrick's Day. We opened it up Cinco de Mayo. My staff's kind of wondering, we don't know. We can't predict the future. We're going to have to close down again in September. We don't know. But to you, on your messaging, what is 406 Resources doing differently as the states reopen? And then what do you think they're going to do if we have to close back down again for a month or two?
Well, it's probably two parts. So my part of it would be the advertising realm. And then as far as what offices are doing, Keli could answer to that better than me. But, as I mentioned before, as you're opening back up, the messaging needs to be telling patients, both current and potential, this is what we're doing. We understand that it's scary. You've got a lot of questions, so you want to try and answer as many of those questions for them as you can. So for Dr. Phillips's office, for example, we made a 90-second TV commercial for him, and bought some blocks and put it up there. And in that 90-second commercial, what he did was explain his understanding that, this is an uneasy time. We're back open. We know people, want to come in. They need to come in. You might be in pain. But when you get here, this is what you can expect. And so when they get there in the commercial, they pull up into a specific parking spot. They call a special phone number. I'm here for my appointment. They come in, you go through a little questionnaire. Have you been around these people? Have you felt this way? Take your temperature. Then they can go inside. They go in a special door directly to their chair. And then when their assistant and their hygienist, they come in, they don't leave your side. And of course, they're in the full PPE gear. They're not being charged for.
That's right.
And they don't leave your side the entire time that your appointment, because when they do, then they got to swap out PPE gear and go on to the next patient. And of course, they added in, other measures, the O2 water, the
ozone. We added
ozone.
Ozone and
the ozone system,
infiltration systems.
Yeah. And so, and we went through that process during that commercial. So there really shouldn't be any question about the level of, well, not only safety, but the confidence that you can have that the environment that you're going into for your dental care is going to be a safe one. And so we've since then have gone down to a condensed 30-second commercial that is pretty much explaining the same things, but obviously just not in as much detail. So as an advertising part of it, that's one example. Now, of course, you can do the same thing on your social media, whether it be Instagram or Facebook, do the same type of a video. Just, of course, make sure that, you're presenting it from a patient standpoint, like what is going to be important to them? What are they going to be afraid of? What hurdles are they going to have to get over or around in order to feel confident about coming into the office? And so as far as what changed, that's a question for Keli.
Yeah, and from an office perspective, if another shutdown happens, that's when you really should be buying PPE, when no one's able to use it. You're stocking up.
Boy, she is a penny pincher, isn't she?
Yes.
It's like I never even thought of that one. It's like,
Yeah.
Oh my God, is she squeaky? Squeaky.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be when you have as many people to take care of as we do, and still be able to enjoy the things that we do. But you can have someone make gowns. They don't have to be disposable. You can wash. There's all kinds of things that can happen in a shutdown that can help you prepare for when you open. And people get, I think, scared and wonder, am I even going to have a practice to go back to? And that's where they kind of internalize everything. But, you know, dentistry is always going to have a place, always. Tooth pain doesn't go away, you know, even in the middle of a pandemic. So, you know, just being smart, you know, take some continuing education if you're in the middle of a shutdown. You know, look at supplies, see where you can cut. You know, think about reinventing yourself when you open. There's so many things that you could do if a shutdown happens again, or if your office is still closed. You know, those are all things that you can do.
Yeah. What can you take advantage of? It's a good time to work on your team. You know, is there a way that we can improve our systems? You know, how can we grow as a group, and, you know, still provide an awesome patient experience for everyone? So, I mean, a shutdown, I can't imagine going through that again. I mean, it is awful. However, if that's something that we have to go through and experience again, you know, look at it like, okay, well, what can I do to get better, rather than beat yourself up and think about how awful the world is. You know, and that, you know,
it really is awful lately. I mean, I mean, this is the first 4th of July where I'm like, I don't even know if I like you. You know what I mean? It's like, it was like trying to go out to celebrate. It's like, okay, there's been, you know, there were some big problems with the United States. I mean, it was founded on two huge, I mean, I grew up Catholic, right? So it was built on two huge mortal sins. The first was a bunch of people coming over here and eradicating the natives and then bringing slaves. So, you know, they already had two solid mortal sins before they even started. And this pandemic is showing that America's greatness, it's time to have a reality check. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot of things going on. The Warren Buffett hadn't bought a single thing a year and a half before the pandemic because if you're standing in a country and all the publicly traded stocks are worth more than the country, that's your first red flag. That's the Buffett index. And I went to Creighton in Omaha, and Warren taught me that in 1980 in our business class, that the total value of stocks needs to be less than the damn country, or it doesn't even add up. And the stocks are still worth about 125% of the GDP. So Warren Buffett hasn't been buying. And then we had this but now the gas line thing. And then the other deal was, I mean, all the doctors on Dental Town think America's got the greatest healthcare system in the world. Well, it didn't look too hot during the pandemic. You know what I mean? I mean, it didn't look too hot just simple shit like I need to get tested for COVID-19. And then they're like, oh, my own doctor says, well, you have to call this number. No, dude, I'm standing here. I have a wallet. I have an American Express. I just want to, I'll tell you what, you're glad you weren't with me at Walmart when I went in there, or Walgreens, to the pharmacy, when I asked them for what was that vaccine? For shingles. And they said, oh, well, you have to get an appointment. You have to get a prescription from your doctor. I said, I am a doctor. No, you're a dentist. Do you want me to jump over the counter and beat the shit out of you right now? And then I can't give you a flu shot. Grandma, when an 80-year-old lady comes in your practice and she doesn't come back from 6 months, what do you think is most likely to happen? She died from gingivitis or influenza? I mean, influenza wipes out, 20 to 30, 40,000 people every winter, and I can't give Grandma a flu shot, but the pharmacy tech at Walgreens can.
Right.
What are you smoking when that's your best idea? I mean, it's just, there's so many crazy things, but I'm an optimist. I think that the greatest human invention was the smartphone. And, for 5,000 years, we were always the victims of the HOA. If they collected you up and sent you off to war, the Roman Empire, I looked at those British, when the British Empire the sun never set on the British Empire. The stats are freaky. Like, they'd have 50 ships leave with 5,000 people. 3 years later, 50 of them are back home. It's like, dude, you left with 27 ships and 500 people, and you come back with 7 ships. And it was just, I don't know how anybody lived the last 5,000 years. I can't even believe they built the pyramids. I bet when they say they don't know when they were started, when they end, how many people it took. Oh my God! I imagine how many people died building the pyramids. These are just strange times. But I believe that when this thing came out, it was the first time in the history that all the individuals were on the same page as the HOA. You know what I mean? And everybody now is seeing the same thing. And if they would have had these during Vietnam War, World War II, all these human atrocities, in economics, we call it transparency. And if you're not transparent with your HR policy, when you're not transparent and you're doing it's like when I raised my 4 boys, they never close their bedroom door. But if all 4 of them ran in one room and closed the door, I mean, I wasn't born last night. I mean, they either walked off with the Oreos, the Cheetos, the ice cream. I mean, something's going down when you watch a 1, 2, 3, and a 4-year-old boy walk into the room and their first idea is to shut the door. I know what that means. So I always want transparency, and I think this is bringing massive transparency. And now 7.5 billion people are backseat driving the HOA saying, you're not impressing me. So I think good things are going to come out of this. I think they're going to have to revisit economics. I think they're going to have to revisit healthcare systems, racial tensions that have never gone away. I mean, I couldn't even, when people are saying, oh, why are they talking about the racial stuff? These are questions I couldn't even explain to my kids. I can remember saying, well, Dad, wasn't that the guy attacking America? Yeah. Well, why has he got a statue? They should shoot that guy. It's like, I know nothing makes sense. But all I want to say, what I like to coach on this pandemic stuff is like, because I saw it with AIDS. At first, it was overboard. And then when people, and I give a lot of credit to Lady Di because she was just the first normal homie that just went and shook that guy's hand. I mean, Ronald Reagan served 8 years in the White House and never mentioned the word AIDS. That's your first red flags. But Lady Di went over and shook his hand. And so I want to know, when you're talking about your UVA lights in the ceiling and all these air purifiers, yeah, I get all that while you're all panicking. But are we going to be doing that 2 years after the pandemic? So my question to you is after the pandemic. So it'll probably the ultimate shit show will be around Christmas. And then 2021, it'll fade away. And then Americans, about 6 weeks after it's gone, they'll forget all about it. So after this pandemic is gone, what do you think we'll still be doing in infection control differently? Like AIDS we got rid of the cuspidor. We quit wearing shorts. That was the most stressful thing. When I told my team in Phoenix, Arizona, and I believe it was in the summer, it's probably about 115 outside, that OSHA just came out with a deal and we can no longer wear shorts. That was the biggest deal breaker I ever had to tell my staff. And they're like, well, how are you going to stop wearing shorts? And I'm like, we have to. And they're all like, well, how do you catch AIDS from someone wearing shorts? And I'm go, it's the government. Of course it doesn't make sense. That's why they call it the government. Then the cuspidors were next. And then the water line from the Phoenix was taken out, and I had to use a bottle. So we've been incrementally improving for 32 years. What are you recommending to incrementally improve now that you think we'll still be doing after the pandemic?
I mean, I think that's a great question, and one that's not easily answered, because, if dentists didn't have to pay for the extra PPE, they wouldn't. I think that you have to look at, if you were going to put your child in that chair, what would be important for your child? What sterilization systems, what, protocols would you have in place? And yes, they want the government to tell us what to do in some respects, but I mean, in regards to the COVID shutdown, the verbiage, the language in the memorandums that went out from the ODA, from the ADA, it was, unless it's an emergency. Well, you could quantify that 100 different ways. So you can't rely on someone else to tell you necessarily. Yes, you need to follow all the protocols and things like that. But if you're going to put your loved one in the chair, what's going to be important to you for the safety of your loved one, considering you're treating all these other patients in that same chair. So I think that's going to be the message that I would, I want to make sure if, whether I sit in the chair, whether my child sits in the chair, or my mother, or somebody off of a street corner sits in a chair, I want it to be universal for everyone.
Great point. And by the way, I want to tell you something. The old saying, "Don't judge a man until you walk a mile in their moccasins." You ask any dentist, what's an emergency? Oh, sensitive hot and cold, wakes you up at night, taking ibuprofen. My first patient when I opened back up, she was the maddest lady I ever met in my life. 70-something years old. Guess why she was pissed? I closed down St. Patrick's Day, and that day her front crown fell off.
I believe it. Absolutely.
And you're thinking, come on, dude, you're 70-something years old. You got a liver spot on your forehead bigger than your tooth. I mean, who cares? Oh, she cared. She wouldn't even go outside.
Yeah.
I mean, and here I am on my podcast, and I forgot to wear my wig today. I mean, I got here, and I'm like, holy moly, I left it right on the kitchen sink. I know we went over an hour. Can I ask you, I still got a couple of overtime questions.
Sure. Nah, we'll sit here all day, and we were enjoying it.
Teledentistry. Fad, fiction, is this a pandemic thing? Do you really see 2 years from now teledentistry is going to be a thing, or is this a panic fad?
That's hard to answer, because I know there's some people in your neck of the woods that are doing teledentistry consults that are killing it. People are not wanting to fly in from 2 states over and wanting to get a consult on, 12 veneers, whatever it is. Who knows? A lot of people used it in the pandemic. We were not one of those practices, but we did have clients that do use it. A lot of times people just want to be ensured that it's fine. It's not something that's an issue. I think there's a place for it, and who knows what that's going to really look like post-pandemic. But I mean, you can't treat dentistry through the computer. So eventually you're going to have to see them. Eventually you're going to have an x-ray. But it could be a good marketing component.
So your other friend who's not here today is Dr. Greg Hebert, who attended the University of Oklahoma College of Dentistry, which I know this is controversial, I'm not going to say it, but I don't even think that dental school should be accredited because their graduates go back to Arkansas and pronounce it Arkansas. Okay, I was born in Kansas. It's the Arkansas River, and when it crosses that line, it's not Arkansas. It's still Arkansas.
Yeah, it's not your Kansas. It's not my Kansas. It's Arkansas. Yeah.
How's he doing in Arkansas?
He's doing well. So
does he pronounce the name right, or does he call it Arkansas?
He says Arkansas.
Oh my gosh.
But he's from Miami, Oklahoma, and not Miami, Oklahoma.
Is that really how they say it? Miami, Oklahoma is Miami?
Yep.
Are you serious? I didn't know that.
Well, and just real quick, there's a town not far from Chickasha, spelled Alex, and it's pronounced Alec. So, I can't explain that one at all.
Hey, can I ask you a real controversial question?
Okay.
And we've gone over an hour, so if this is like over the top, Kyle will edit it out. But I everybody's reviewing all this history stuff, and you're on your website, it says Blackhorse is a creative and calculated advertising, a Native American-owned company. We specialize in creative and fully custom solutions to a client-specific advertising needs, from targeting customer, client demographics. You go on and on and on. And I asked you to come on the show, right? You didn't ask me. I mean, I was asking you. And but when I went to your website, well, first of all, I didn't know you were Native American, but it said a Native American-owned company. But I know from being a kid that Oklahoma is derived from the Choctaw words Okla and Huma, meaning red people. And today in the newspaper, they're talking about the Redskins football franchise changing the name I'm not qualified to weigh in on this. Do you mind weighing in your thoughts on this, or is this too controversial?
No, I don't mind.
Do you wish I didn't ask?
No, it doesn't bother me whatsoever. But my personal opinion on it is, what's kind of funny about it is there are a group of Native American population that obviously are very offended by it. I'm not one of those, because what's funny is whenever I was a little kid, I was a Redskins fan, and well, can you even imagine why? Well, hey, and as a little kid, again, they're honoring, my culture with this name and with this logo. And so I was a fan of the Redskins because of that. Some of my other friends growing up, even as adults, were still Redskins fans. What's funny, they got a lot of my Native American buddies that are Cowboys fans, which that makes no sense to me.
I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think of the opposite of that.
Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah, they kind of slid the other way on that one. So for me, it's not affecting my everyday life. I mean, I'm still able to go and do as I please. I don't see any roadblocks coming up because of that. At the end of the day, it's a name. It's been around for a long time, obviously. And the way I look at a lot of those controversial issues is, okay, well, how is that affecting me and my friends right now? And from what I can tell, it hasn't affected me. I've been able to go and do business in places across the country, and it's never been an issue. A lot of my family members, it's kind of the same way.
We joked, I think yesterday even, you need to buy the Redskins gear while you can.
Yeah.
Because the logo will be gone. So
that's it.
I didn't even think of the Cowboys. How come no one's even mentioned that?
Exactly.
I live on ESPN, and I never even put that together. That's it's just crazy times, and that's what it's just people are isolated. They're economically hit. Some are scared. These are just not the best of times.
Yeah, it's not a lot of fun to scroll through Facebook these days. I kind of like to go back to the days where, I saw what, my friends and my family and their kids are all doing. Where are you vacationing? Oh, wow, where did you get that good looking plate of food? Where's that? That kind of stuff. I like to have fun with the social media part of it, and it's really hard because now I'm not even sure what's real news or not. So I take it with a grain of salt. You see what you see on social media is on one extreme or the other, and I think a great majority of us live somewhere in the middle, a little bit closer to what reality is. And
I think this pandemic is making a lot of alert because when you talk about fake news, I always first try to answer the question. When someone says humans, they factually know mitochondrial Eve was just 1 million years ago. And probably 120 billion humans have lived, and there's about 8 billion alive now. But our whole species is 1 million years old. The Big Bang was 13.8 billion years ago. So humans, we're like on a 24-hour clock. Humans showed up with like 4 seconds before midnight. The one thing that I'm glad this pandemic came out is people don't realize that we're kind of cats. You talk about scaredy cats. Cats touch they're always touching their face. They're always smelling their fingers. And most humans didn't realize that before the pandemic that you touch your face once a minute. And there's been a lot of research. They just take pictures of like during a football game or whatever. And every time you take a picture of a sports fan, the same percentage of people are touching their face. And a lot of the touching the face is also smelling. So you're touching your environment, you're smelling. But you're scared because that's survival. If you were fearless, you would have gone extinct 1 million years ago. So it's totally normal to be a scaredy cat, not trust anything. I remember the first time I saw a cocoa plantation, who the hell figured out that could be turned into a Hershey's chocolate bar? Who was the first idiot to eat that thing? You mean you pulled a root out of the ground and what did you do to it? And normal people would say, no, you're not going to eat that berry out of that bush, because what if it's the wrong berry and you eat it and drop dead? So I think they're just learning to understand their tool more. You're a scaredy cat, the same reason you touch your face once a minute. Of course you're scared of everything. Everything could kill you. That's pretty much the environment that you were already a homebody. I mean, look at a woodpecker. It'll find a tree and it'll spend all day because it just wants to make that little bitty hole to crawl in there and be protected from the world. So everybody thinks they're a homebody. They're all homebodies. They're all scaredy cats. That's just the nature of humans. So I've always found that when you get lost and you don't know what's going on in society, go back in time, read anthropology, read history. If you can't figure out this plague, go read about the bubonic plague. But the further you go back in time, especially when you leave sapien, go back at least 1 million years. And if you can't figure out the answer by studying a raccoon or a mouse or a giraffe or a zebra, you don't even know yourself. You know what I mean? I mean, just get underneath the problem. The times are so crazy right now. It's just a good time to go back in time, study your basics. How's Greg doing after he moved from Miami?
Yeah, so he decided he wanted a change of pace. So he went to Lowell, Arkansas, found a building he liked, built it out for...
Did you say Lower Arkansas?
Lowell.
Oh, Lowell.
Well.
Okay.
It's on the
I thought
north.
you said Lower Arkansas. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
No, it's actually a part of Fayetteville,
Which is where my sister lives.
Okay.
My sister Keli lives there.
So she says Fayetteville, probably. So he got a building there that he built out for his practice and started a brand new practice from 0 patients. Brought some of his team members over an hour and a half away from Miami. And, eventually sold his practice there and now practices in Lowell, Arkansas, and, has built that practice up, and incrementally every year, he's built it to, make a little bit more, just stair-stepping it in. And, I go in and help him with his marketing and advertising. And every time I go in, we always share a few laughs and just talk dentistry, just kind of like what we're doing here.
And who's your best guy? Who's listening to you right now, and how would they contact you? And who is your best client? So first of all, your website, we already talked about that. So you got thebblackhorsemarketing.com, and then you said go to 406resources.com?
Correct.
And where's 406 came from?
Oh, well,
is that your batting average?
Actually, 406 was Ted Williams's batting average in 1941.
Really?
It was, and he didn't win the MVP. Joe DiMaggio did, because he had a 56-game hitting streak. So that same year, of course. So, so the 406 came from there. We are a resource company. For a doctor to be able to call and talk to another doctor and speak candidly about, hey, I'm having these issues, and they can talk on the same level. Dentists are going to talk on a little bit different level than what Keli and I are. If they're talking about things that are going on in the back office or issues that they're having with personnel, Keli can help out with a lot of that stuff in the HR part of it. So her resource to that is going to be, a lot of those systems and administrative things, that go into a practice. My contribution as a resource part of that is going to be the marketing and advertising, of course, because, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, you talk to a doctor and, how many new patient phone calls did you get? How many did you book? Oh, gosh, I've got no idea. I hired a marketing company. I got all these phone calls, but then none of them booked. But they've got somebody who's reading from a script. Hi, how are you today? Can I get you an appointment? But they immediately blame the marketing company. Well, that didn't work. And so what we're trying to do is bring the different resources that we each have together, so that way we can kind of have all this connective tissue together under, one umbrella per se. And if you're going to be a resource company, well, how many resources do you got? Well, maybe not 406, but Ted Williams' number is pretty cool. So,
so the 406 didn't what did the 406 mean to you? I mean, why did you call it that? Because of that?
Well, because that is if you're a baseball fan, that is like, what is the next benchmark to get knocked down? What is the next, seemingly impossible attainable record? Well, it's to hit 400 for a season. And some of the greatest guys to do it since then have been Tony Gwynn and George Brett. Well, who else has gotten close? John Olerud got close one time, but you don't talk about John Olerud. You still talk about those greats, Tony Gwynn and George Brett. And so even though that's such a hard number to get to, it may not ever happen, but you're dang sure going to try for it. And so you may not ever have the perfect practice, but we're dang sure going to try and help you get there.
Well, and Ted Williams, the science of hitting, if we're talking about there's science behind all of this, as dentists should know, it may not be fillings and crowns that we're talking about with science. It might be handling the new patient phone call. It might be tackling AR. It might be insurance aging. It might be credentialing with insurances. It could be marketing, advertising. There's science behind all of this. And so having those resources, if you want to go paperless, well, Greg's office is paperless. If you want to stay with paper, my office is still paper. We have people with boots on the ground. A lot of consultants worked in practices years ago. How does that help you in a pandemic? They weren't a part of a pandemic. They've never restarted their practice. They've never had to close their practice, so having all of these different minds working collectively is a great resource for other people.
So I know your husband is a baseball freak, but what did you say to him when he came home and said, I'm going to have baseballs implanted in my biceps? Because I know those aren't real biceps. I know those are baseball implants.
Yeah. Well,
Are they silicone baseballs or show us your silicone baseballs?
Are you serious right now?
Yeah.
Like you want me to?
I want you to flex that damn bicep. Look at.
All right. Okay. Is that?
Pull back that shirt.
Oh.
That is a monster buy. So is that a silicone baseball implant signed by Nolan Ryan?
No, that is me chasing kids around and, hey, Dad, watch this. I can do it better. I always told Keli I wanted to have kids young, so I was still be able to play with them while they're kids. And my 18-year-old has yet to beat me one-on-one basketball. But what's funny is his summer league baseball team played my men's summer league baseball team last year, and he struck me out. So he does have that.
Nice. But he loved that. Did he love that?
Oh, yeah, more than you know. But not just, well, like Keli was saying, the science of everything, and you mentioned earlier about my website about strategically looking at things. Science deals in numbers.
Science deals in numbers.
Of course, numbers is used for science, and it's obviously a big part of baseball. So we kind of keep that together. Is that we always want to look at numbers. And you mentioned before how docs don't know the numbers. We want them to know the numbers. What is the value of a new patient? Where did they come from? How many no-shows? What is your treatment acceptance rate? What kind of chair time do you have? When we get those numbers, there's no emotion involved whatsoever. They are what they are. And there's a time for emotion, of course. But when you can see the numbers and you look at them, in a specific way and try and learn from it, then we kind of know what we can and need to adjust and how to approach it and take it from there. So, and again, as Keli mentioned, it's coming from an area of people that are doing it every day. Keli's had to work through a pandemic. What did we do during the shutdown? What did we do as we're starting to open? And now as we open up, what did we see and how did we deal with it? And how are we continuing to move forward? So those were really the reasons that 406 came to be. We just bounced a bunch of ideas off of each other all the time and thought we could help people out. And where are we different is that, we're working in dentistry every day.
And what is the best way who would be your best customer and how should they contact you? They should go to 406resources.com And
They
that'd be
certainly
the best.
can contact us from there. There's a form they can fill out. Will shoot us an email, and I can get in touch anytime. Or
what email?
front office at 406resources.com.
And who would be your best client? I mean, what problem? Who should be calling you? What? She's driving to work, and the people listening to me, most of them just need to go straight to AA. But if she's already past that, what problem would you solve?
Well, I mean, our best client would be, anyone that knows that they need help. Like you said, AA. I mean, the first step is admitting you have a problem.
Right.
And a lot of, like you said, a lot of times dentists, hey, I'm the smartest person in the room. So the hardest thing to do is admit, like, I'm going to need some help with this. Like, this office and this stuff is getting away from me. I need to bring somebody in that's going to help optimize some of this stuff and identify where some of my office blockages are. So, I mean, honestly, that could be anybody. Because like I said, I was jokingly, but Mike Trout, he has a batting coach. He's the greatest baseball player alive today. He still has a base running coach, a defensive coach. So even the best that are out there still can use some help. And then there's other folks that are good at what they do, but they work really hard and they want to get some more help. So I think anybody that recognizes that they could use some help in their office, whether it would be marketing, or whether it be, administration, answering the phones, or getting good systems in place.
I think if you're looking for any growth at all, you do a lot of self-examination, trying to figure out where can I go from here. I think those would be the people that should call us if you're looking.
And here's what I've been saying for 1,400 shows for 4 years, that every one of my friends that's as old as me has an amazing practice. And you say, well, did you ever use a dental consultant? Duh. It's not what did they use one. It's who did they use? And most of them use several every year. I mean, I started with Sally McKenzie the day I opened up my office. I've had Sandy Perdue. I've had so many consultants. And what I understand is these dentists, they tell me how miserable they are. And they tell me how frustrated they are at HR, and then I'm looking at the data. I'm kind of like, if we're playing baseball, you're the athlete, I'm that money ball guy. I just want to look at the stats. I'm like, okay, well, who's done all the hiring? Me, I'm the doc. Okay, and your average employee lasts a year. I'm pretty sure you suck at this. I mean, I don't own a baseball team, I don't own Moneyball, but I'm pretty sure this ain't your cup of tea, dude. Why in the world? I mean, how could you not find anybody better than this? Then you go look at their team, and you got some too young, too old, toxic, weird. And then you got this like, oh, my God, you're normal. Let's give the normal person the HR. And then other people say, well, I want to get I need to do this. I mean, look at your own team. But why would you choose stress over a consultant? And then you'll say, and then some consultant will say, well, I looked at them, but they wanted like 50 grand and like, no way. So what did you do? Oh, I went and bought a $150,000 CEREC machine. That's now a coat rack. And then I bought a $100,000 laser that now I'm trying to sell on eBay for a case of beer. And then if it's some stupid machine, CAD CAM, laser, whatever, they'll drop 100 grand. Then you say, well, this person, you gave him 50 grand. I bet your office, I'll bet you 50 grand that if you give that consultant 50 grand, you'll collect 50 more grand this year. You'll get your money back in 2020 in the middle of a freaking pandemic. Well, no, I think I'm going to buy a laser. I found a laser that has a drill and it has 3 blinking lights on it and no one even knows what they do. They'll drop 100 grand on that shit 24 hours a day. And then you say,
marketing. That's good marketing on behalf of the company selling the laser with the 3 green lights.
Well, we are in double, triple overtime, and Zach's testing me saying, Dad, you said you get off in 5 minutes. So I don't know what's going on with Zach, but he wants me to end this show. So my final question to John. Okay. Favorite movie of all time? Field of Dreams, Moneyball, or The Sandlot? Or Bad News Bears? I'm throwing them all out there.
Which Bad News Bears is it?
Oh, was there more than one?
There's the one with what is his name? Oh,
Angelina Jolie's ex-husband.
yeah. What's his name?
The guy that used to have the vial of blood, that used to walk around with the vial of her blood.
Yeah, Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah.
That is a wild man. But what's your favorite baseball movie of all time?
You know, I guess of the options that you gave me, I would say Field of Dreams is probably my favorite one.
Kevin Costner.
Yeah. It's some. What's funny? Give you a short story on that. Is my first college baseball coach was in that movie. In the scene where Moonlight Graham crosses over to help the girl who's choking on the hot dog, he's one of the players on the field. He happened to go to a community college out there at the time. They were looking for extras. He said, I got to hang out and play baseball on the field during the day while they were filming, and got to, talk to Tommy Lee Jones. So, yeah, I mean, just an interesting tidbit to that, that my college baseball coach was a movie star. And, but no, it's just good players. They talked about actual players, which I really liked. I loved the history part of it. Got Fenway Park in there. Can't hardly beat
James
that.
Earl Jones.
And if you got Kevin Costner involved, it's going to be hours long, so you're going to get your money's worth at the movie theater.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And your marketing company named a casino.
We did.
Which one?
It's in Oklahoma called the Silver Buffalo Casino. Had a little side story that went with it. We designed the logo, and they took off and ran with it, and it was a lot of fun. It was different. I really thought when I first got into this, I really wanted to be more in the Native American community, and deal with tribes, but they're just like the U.S. government. They're going to put your paper on top of the stack and draw from the bottom. And, it took a lot of time to get things done. And, I'm trying to move a little bit quicker than that. But it was a lot of fun. It was a fun experience.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am a big fan of yours. I mean, reading your 500 posts over the last years, I feel like I don't know who's posting who, or I don't know if whatever, but been a big fan of your stuff. Love your chemistry. Love podcasting. I think you're an amazing guy. It's John Tointigh and his wife, Keli Tointigh. That is so funny. Keli was named after the radio station. I'm going to name my next grandchild KFDI. And their website is 406resources.com. And thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for all that you do for dentistry. It was just an honor to podcast you guys.
All of the honor and pleasures on this side of the internet connection. Thank you so much for having us on. Really been looking forward to it. So we appreciate that you asked us to be here, and we're happy to do it.
All right. Well, have a rocking hot day, and good luck with those 5 kids.
Oh, and then all the luck we can get.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you.